Cosmic Awakening, 1991. Peru, Journey into the Unknown. Sacred Valley of the Incas. By Makāula Nakae. After returning home. Episode 28, Returning to the Higher Self. Some time after this wondrous journey, I frequently found myself heading to Tokyo to meet up with Chigasaki and many other friends from the tour. Under the pretext of photo exchange gatherings and the like, we constantly got together and spent delightful hours in each other's company. When I traveled to Tokyo again during the Obon holiday, I headed to Chigasaki, along with Tadashi and his wife to meet Juju, a Japanese female channeler who was popular among the Peru group at the time. She didn't seem to enter a trance state like other channelers. Instead, she apparently perceived various things while remaining fully conscious. Having never met any channeler other than Edward, we stumbled our way to her home in Chigasaki and knocked on the door. The person who answered was a boyish figure with light brown hair, looking like a former surfer, which instantly shattered our preconceptions of what a channeler should look like. "What kind of things have you come to ask about today?" she asked. Exchanging glances with one another, Tadashi and I couldn't muster a single reply period. Watching us, she stared into space for a brief moment and said, "Past lives, right? And meeting your higher self." Contrary to our expectations, the three of us underwent the session together at the same time, and eventually, all three of us lay down in our preferred spots, entering a meditative state as she guided us. Within a hazy vision, the white-haired elderly man with a long white beard, who had appeared in the vision at the Machu Picchu Hotel, began to materialize, grasping a staff. Then she remarked, "I see an old man with white hair holding a staff." I was slightly startled and replied, "That old man is visible to me right now too." She apparently was viewing the very same vision we were seeing at the same time. "He is your higher self. Before long, you'll be able to channel as well," she said casually. Inwardly thinking, is that so? I waited for the next vision to appear. Gradually, the image of a meadow near a Peruvian lake began to emerge faintly, though before that vision could sharpen its outlines, it was replaced by another. An Inca boy with a dark complexion came into view. He wore tattered, light brown linen shorts and a worn-out, soiled white shirt. Juju approached me once more and said, "That child is what you look like when you lived in the Inca-era. Long ago, there were many wars. And because of your spiritual abilities at that time, you were left behind there. When you woke up in the morning, your family and everyone around you had already gone off to battle. And even now, that boy is waiting in that place for everyone and his family to return. That's why you shed tears when you saw the desolate slums of Lima. That's why you had to pass through that place multiple times, so you could remember that memory." Influenced by the circumstances of my past life as explained by Juju, I felt terribly sorry for him. If I had been placed in the exact same situation right now, I could only imagine how utterly confused and heartbroken I would have felt. When I concentrated on his appearance and belongings following her advice, I realized that my Inca-era self was holding a small box. When I asked in my heart what that box was, he showed me the palm of his hand, and my field of view shifted to a scene of pure, blinding white light. My consciousness was sharper than in a normal state, and I knew with absolute clarity that I wasn't dreaming. Even though my eyes were closed, I was witnessing a side unlike anything I had ever seen in any science fiction film. The surroundings were enveloped in a bluish-white glowing air, creating a somewhat fantastical atmosphere. Spread out before my eyes was a mountain made entirely of crystal. At its base lay a giant elder with a long white beard, resting with a staff beside him. Intuitively, it felt as though he was more than twice our average height. "That is the true form of your higher self," Juju said. However, his appearance left a considerably different impression from the vision I had seen in the Machu Picchu hotel room. When I glimpsed him in Machu Picchu, he had a very hard, almost frozen-in-time image. By contrast, he felt vastly different, exquisitely soft, to the point where I felt I could even sense his breathing nearby. When I spoke to the higher self in my heart, the reply came back, "You've made it far." His voice wasn't transmitted through my physical ears. Rather, it formed clear words within my consciousness, perceived hand in hand with a profound sensory feeling. I distinctly understood that I was communicating with a non-physical entity, using a method I had never utilized before. Thoughts not belonging to me suddenly entered my consciousness, accompanied by a certain distinct sensation. I knew that this communication with my higher self, so far beyond the boundaries of imagination, was no mere illusion. The moment I realized I was experiencing another dimension while retaining full consciousness, I felt an immense, boundless torrent of energy flowing into my totality. It wasn't words, but an energy transcending them, piercing through every cell, dissolving something within me, and gathering near my heart. It was unlike any energy I had ever conceived of or experienced. One could call it the energy of love. It was an overwhelming light of energy containing the thoughts of love. In that instant, I knew my entire physical body was shifting. That energy arose from within my body, pushing outward through my skin, the marrow of my bones, and all my cells beyond the physical form. I felt my spine twitch and arch backward, and from that reaction, fold inward. I felt absolutely no emotional fear. Deep down in my heart, I felt as though a part of me in another dimension was calmly accepting and taking a philosophical view of the event. I felt in my consciousness that I was being embraced in the bosom of my higher self, while simultaneously enveloped in his energy, viewing myself from above as I wept with a contorted voice and body. After a little while, peace began to return to my physical body, and I could feel various levels of understanding, transcending mere words, occurring within both my consciousness and my body. Yet translating what that actually was into words seemed impossible. It felt as though a consciousness foreign to my own was transmitting across my mind and all my cells like a reel of flashing memories. Amidst a peace I had never experienced before, I felt my consciousness slowly fading away. It felt as though I had lost consciousness for a while, feeling nothing and seeing nothing. It was simply as though I had become completely transparent, existing within a pure white world. Eventually, several visions emerged faintly, though whether they were illusions or true visions remained unclear. Inside a white, soft space resembling a spaceship, small windows and extraterrestrials wearing uniforms appeared hazily. I also glimpsed a scene where I myself had been an extraterrestrial. Yet because the outlines lacked sharpness, it was hard to distinguish whether they were illusions generated by my own subconscious. Before long, I realized my consciousness was slowly returning to my physical body, and various surrounding sounds and conversations began reaching me through my ears. Reconnecting with my body at last, I slowly rolled over and raised my upper body. Tadashi and his wife were already sitting with their eyes open, waiting for my consciousness to return. The moment I let out a sigh and looked up at them, Tadashi spoke first, telling me, "Your body was twitching and you were crying." Hearing his somewhat surprised words, I felt that my consciousness hadn't yet fully returned to its normal state. All three of us had experienced realities extending far beyond ordinary bounds. We had no sense of time, nor any sense of place. Because of that state, we got lost repeatedly on our way back from Juju's house to the Japanese National Railway Station, walking wearily along the coastal side of Chigasaki in search of a taxi under the late afternoon sunlight. We rendezvoused with Tamtam, who had introduced us to Juju and Yokohama's Chinatown, and the four of us discussed the details of the session while eating Chinese cuisine. Tadashi remarked that just when he thought he was viewing a UFO from the outside, he realized he was actually inside it, and that every field of view he experienced felt like looking through the viewfinder as a cameraman. His wife also said she had seen a spaceship and met her higher self, and everyone agreed without exception that their higher self was remarkably tall. The conscious journey guided by Juju was an absolute success. Whatever the reality of the visions we experienced might have been, those experiences had become a part of our consciousness. Denying the things we had experienced felt like sheer nonsense, and the events felt entirely natural. I knew full well that if I told my friends in Kyushu about traveling through consciousness to meet my higher self, they wouldn't believe a word of it. So I felt happy to have friends with whom I could casually enjoy such conversations over a normal meal. Even afterward, whenever events or domestic trips came up, we gathered and spent time together. Each time, I repeatedly thought how truly lucky I was to have gone on that wondrous trip to Peru. Beyond the extraordinary experiences in Peru itself, gaining so many kindred-spirited friends was the greatest harvest of all, a fact that struck me forcefully time and time again. Whenever I look back on that magical journey to Peru, what I ponder most is perhaps how deeply I had changed through the experiences of that trip. In truth, I had changed immensely. Now I can look back and see how different my former self is from who I am today, and reflect upon the sheer magnitude of the shift in consciousness I underwent. Ever since that miraculous journey, I began to gradually free myself from my own inner constraints, beginning to free myself from everything, and various limitations fell away. Caring about what others thought or how they judged me, worrying about social appearances and consciously controlling my emotions shrank dramatically, as did playing the role of someone I wasn't. I rarely felt anger explosive enough to trigger outbursts, nor did I experience feelings of aversion or suspicion toward things. I suppose I was finally beginning to enjoy my true self. After returning from Peru, my life began spinning rapidly in a new direction. From time to time, I would travel up to Tokyo, stay at Tadashi's place, and spend time with my Peruvian friends. Together, we visited Mount Fuji, journeyed to Tinkawa Shrine deep in the mountains of Nara, and traveled to Egypt the following year in 1992. Then, through some twist of fate, I took a foundational channeling seminar by Lissa Royal, and training as a channeler slowly began. That same autumn, alongside Lissa Royal and several friends I had made in Peru and Egypt, I set off to tour the Mayan and Aztec ruins on the Yucatán Peninsula in Central America, experiencing a multitude of things along the way. Among them, the most profound impact was perhaps being made clearly aware that I was destined to become a channeler. During domestic trips I took with Saki on several occasions, I witnessed ordinary UFOs vanishing in zigzags in an instant. I also spotted UFOs on the nights of the days I was first called to Tokyo to perform channeling for individuals. Every time I traveled to Tokyo for channeling work like that, we would gather and talk about the events in Peru as if recounting memories from a distant past. At the start of 1993, my work in Seattle was finalized, and I spent my final night in Japan with many of my Peruvian friends. On that last night, Saki softly murmured with deep sentiment, "The sacred valley and the town of Machu Picchu." Truly, they were such wondrous places. Gazing up at the bright night sky of Tokyo, so luminous that one had to strain their eyes and concentrate just to spot the twinkling of a star, I replied, "That's right, they truly were wondrous places, weren't they? We saw UFOs, we had fun. So let's all go together again someday." Spring 1997. Returning to Peru, I was hurrying toward the gate at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport to board a flight bound for Lima via Miami. Having wrapped up my work as a magazine designer in Seattle, I had already decided to take a job working at an advertising agency in Honolulu. So I figured this would be the perfect opportunity to bring closure to that chapter by joining a trip back to Peru. A woman who had accompanied us on our previous journey to Peru was serving as the tour leader this time, and she had asked me to support the group as a channeler during our travels through Peru and Bolivia. About 10 of our old travel companions were also joining the group. A party of nearly 30 people had already arrived in Lima, and I was planning to rendezvous in Miami with Saki, who was arriving late, and Wada, with whom I had traveled through the ruins of Mexico and the Maya in 1995. As I walked down the concourse, a sudden thought struck me, and I slowed my pace to buy a book at an airport kiosk, when I spotted a woman with a strikingly familiar face right before me. The moment I realized who it was, my inner reaction was, I've been played. The two people I was supposed to meet up with in Miami were shopping inside the kiosk, wearing rucksacks that looked slightly oversized for their frames. "What are you doing here?" "Weren't we supposed to rendezvous in Miami?" I asked, to which I received the carefree reply, "We didn't know our tickets routed through Seattle." At that moment, I felt with absolute certainty that I had been securely plugged into some grand cosmic itinerary. To top it all off, as if prearranged by design, the seats on the tickets I had booked out of Seattle and the tickets they had booked from Japan were positioned directly back to back. "The universe certainly has a playful sense of style, doesn't it?" Psyche chuckled softly. And laughing together, we walked slowly toward the gate, waiting for our flight to Miami, returning once more to Peru, to the sacred valley of the Incas and the aerial city of Machu Picchu. About the author. Makāula Nakae. Psychic author, AIDS author, graphic artist. Originally from Fukuoka Prefecture, Japan, Makāula Nakae has spent 30 years, beginning in 1990, engaged in spiritual pursuits and extraterrestrial (ET) contact. Drawing directly from profound personal experiences, such as ancient Egyptian ascension, transcendental encounters, and the awakening of a star child, Nike continues to explore the 5D vibrational world through authentic ascension insights, energy healing, remote healing, and light body activation. In addition, Naki teaches psychic development and advanced energy healing. As a designer, Naki has created numerous advertising campaigns, including Waikiki tourism projects, and actively collaborates on various artistic endeavors. Major works in Japanese. Sacred Hawaii. Hawaiian spirituality. Enjoying Oahu spiritually, historical sites, legends, and power spots. Beyond the Sacred Valley and the aerial city of Machu Picchu Blue Dolphin, a full-length spiritual romance novel set against the beaches and clubs of Waikiki. The Blue Eyes of Andromeda, upper volume. The Blue Eyes of Andromeda, lower volume. Works in English. Love, Lost, Rebirth, Alive, Blue Dolphins, the novel. Crimson Rose, Awakened Dreams, Le Château de l'Immortalité. A Great Argead Saga Alexine, Alexander the Great Volume 1. Telesius the War Dance. A Great Argead Saga Alexine, Alexander the Great Volume 2. Hieros Lachus the Sacred Band.